So what if the real key to solving Nigeria's biggest security problems wasn't a bigger army or more weapons, but simply changing how we use our wallets? The source material we're digging into today makes that exact, really bold claim, that physical cash is the main fuel for crime, and if you want to stop the violence, you have to cut off the cash.
And this right here, this is the core of the whole argument. The idea that all these terrible crimes, kidnapping, banditry, you name it, they all share one critical weakness. They absolutely depend on physical, untraceable cash. This one thought really sets the stage for everything we're about to cover.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll unpack that main idea about financial oxygen. Then, we'll tackle all the big objections head-on. After that, we'll look at some surprising evidence from the past, lay out the proposed solution, and finally, talk about the huge choice the nation is facing.
Okay, first up, crime's financial oxygen. It's a powerful way to think about it, right? The source isn't just saying cash helps crime. It's saying cash is the very air that crime needs to breathe.
So, what is financial oxygen? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the ability to move large amounts of money around without anyone knowing. I mean, think about it. A kidnapper can't exactly ask you to wire the ransom to their bank account, can they? That would leave a massive digital trail pointing right to them. But cash? Cash is anonymous. It's untraceable. It's the oxygen that keeps these criminal fires burning.
Now look, when you propose something this huge, people are going to have some serious questions and doubts, and rightly so. The source knows this, and it sets out to tackle the biggest myths and objections one by one, using today's facts, not yesterday's.
And here it is, probably the biggest hurdle in everyone's mind. We all remember the cash scarcity in 2023. For a lot of people, it was just pure chaos. So the big question is, why on earth would this time be any different?
Well, the source argues you just can't compare then to now. It says 2023 wasn't a fair test. The whole thing was rushed, maybe even sabotaged, and the digital backbone just wasn't strong enough. But today, it's a whole new ballgame. We're talking about a massive explosion in payment terminals, way more mobile money options, and fierce competition in the fintech space. The entire system is just worlds away from where it was.
This is a huge one. What happens to people in rural areas? What about folks who don't even have a bank account? You don't want a policy that leaves the most vulnerable people behind. That's a very real concern.
But the source hits back with this absolutely staggering number, over 220 million mobile lines. The argument is that the tool for financial inclusion is already in practically everyone's hand or pocket. And here's the kicker. You can turn these phones into payment wallets with simple USSD codes that don't even need the internet. So the logic goes, being excluded is no longer a technology problem.
Okay, but even if you have a phone, is it easy enough to use? Can people who aren't tech-savvy or who struggle with reading navigate a digital system? It's a fair question about making sure this works for everyone.
The source's response to this is, well, it's pretty blunt. It basically says, we need to get our priorities straight. It's not about convenience anymore. It's about national survival. The argument is simple. If criminals can figure out how to use complex military-grade weapons, then surely the rest of us can learn to use a simple 4-digit PIN, especially when our safety depends on it.
All right, here's another point you hear a lot. Some of these big criminal groups are sponsored by outside forces, right? They get weapons, not cash. So would going cashless even make a difference to them?
But this is where the source says people are missing the point. It's about the business model. The whole reason kidnapping-for-ransom exists is to get cash. You take a victim to get a pile of untraceable money. You can't get paid a ransom in bullets. So if you make it impossible to collect large cash payments, you don't just make it harder for them, you completely destroy their main reason for kidnapping people in the first place.
Let's talk about something we've all probably dealt with. That dreaded pending transaction that never seems to go through. If the system isn't rock solid, forcing everyone to use it could just grind the whole country to a halt.
And this is where technology comes in with the answer. The source points to something called the National Payment Stack, built by NIBS. That's the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. It's described as this world-class system that's pretty much solved the reliability issue. We're talking 99.9% reliable instant transactions. The days of getting stuck in pending are, according to this, basically over.
Okay, so now we get to what the source presents as its smoking gun. It asks us to look at the 2023 cash crunch not as a total failure, but as a kind of accidental, real-world experiment that showed us something incredible.
And this timeline tells a really dramatic story.
In early 2023, when cash vanished, kidnapping rates reportedly fell off a cliff, almost to zero. There were even stories of captors letting hostages go because they physically couldn't get paid the ransom. And then what happened? As soon as the new notes started flowing again, the crime rate shot right back up. The link between cash and crime couldn't be clearer.
So with that kind of evidence, the source doesn't just stop at pointing out the problem. It proposes a very specific, actionable solution. This isn't just an idea. It's a step-by-step plan for how to get this done.
And here are the 5 steps. First, you announce a clear timeline, like 90 to 120 days to get everyone ready. Second, you mandate digital-only payments for key things like government fees and fuel. Third, you speed up linking every SIM card to a national ID, basically turning every phone into a ready-to-use wallet. Fourth, you launch a huge campaign to teach everyone how to use it. And finally, you give security agencies the tools to follow the money, but, and this is crucial, with judicial oversight to protect people's rights.
And this all leads us to the final part of the argument. It frames this whole thing not just as another policy debate, but as a genuine, historic turning point for the country. This chart really visualizes the frustration. For years and years, the strategy has been to spend more money, trillions on military budgets, billions on new hardware, and yet the crime rate just stays stubbornly high. The source basically says, look, it's clear this approach isn't working. We need to try something new, a financial strategy instead of just a military one.
So, this is the final summary. The argument is that all the pieces are finally in place to make this work. The technology is here, the digital infrastructure is now strong enough to handle it, and the proof from that 2023 experiment is undeniable. According to this analysis, the question of can we do this is pretty much settled. And that leads to this ultimate conclusion from the source. This isn't about debating if this is the right move anymore, it's about deciding how fast we can make it happen. The only thing missing, it suggests, is the political will to push the button.
And we end with this final, really powerful question. It takes the whole discussion away from technology and policy and puts it right back where it belongs, on the very real, very human cost of waiting any longer.